Her true story from Texas. My daughter called and said, "Don't come to my wedding. I need space from toxic people." After I saved for her dream dress for 2 years. So I returned the dress before the big day. She walked down the aisle in a plain white sheet. "You don't belong here anymore, Mom. I'm starting fresh with people who actually support me." Those were the words my daughter Emma spoke to me at exactly 9:15 p.m., 3 weeks before her wedding day. I was sitting on my porch swing, the same one her daddy built before she was born. The fireflies were dancing in the yard like tiny stars come down to visit. I had just finished pressing her grandmother's wedding veil, the one that had been in our family for 60 years. My hands still smelled like lavender from the tissue paper I'd wrapped it in. The phone rang sharp and cold in the warm evening air. When I answered, her voice was different. Not my little girl anymore, but someone who sounded like a stranger wearing my daughter's name. "I've been thinking, Mom. And I've decided you shouldn't come to the wedding." I thought she was joking at first. "What do you mean, honey?" asked, my voice getting smaller. "I mean what I said. This is my day, and I don't want any drama or OLD energy around me." She didn't even pause to let me speak. "I'm trying to build something new here, and you represent everything I'm leaving behind." I sat there holding the phone like it might bite me. The fireflies kept dancing, but everything else went still. Even the wind stopped moving through the trees. "Emma, I don't understand. What did I do wrong?" My voice cracked like old wood. She sighed, the kind of sigh you give when someone asks you to explain something obvious. "It's not about what you did. It's about who you are. You're from the old me, the version of myself I'm trying to heal from." I looked through the screen door at the wedding dress hanging in my bedroom. Pure white silk with tiny pearls sewn by hand. $3,000 I'd saved by working extra shifts at the diner. My feet hurt for months, but every dollar felt like love stitched into fabric. "But Emma, I bought your dress. I planned the flowers. I've been helping you for months." She cut me off like I was speaking a foreign language. "That's exactly the problem, Mom. You always try to control everything with your money. This is about boundaries and growth." I wanted to remind her that she'd called me crying when she couldn't afford the dress she wanted. How she'd begged me to help her make her dreams come true. How I'd worked double shifts until my hands were raw and my back ached like fire. But something in her voice told me she didn't want to remember any of that. "Who's going to walk you down the aisle?" I whispered. "My real family. The people who actually understand me. Real family." The words hit me like a slap across the face. I'd raised her alone after her daddy died in that car accident when she was only 7. I'd been her mother, her father, her cheerleader, her safe place when the world got scary. I'd missed my own dreams to make sure she had everything she needed. But now I wasn't her real family anymore. I was just the old version of herself she wanted to forget. "I need you to understand, Mom. This wedding is about my new life. And you're part of my old one." The line went quiet for a long moment. I could hear her breathing, waiting for me to say something. But what do you say when your own child erases you like a mistake on paper? I looked at the picture on my side table. Emma at 5 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a dandelion she'd picked for me. "You're my best friend, Mama," she'd said that day. Now I wasn't even invited to watch her say, "I do." After we hung up, I walked inside and stood in front of that wedding dress. It hung there like a ghost of all my hopes. Every sequin caught the light like tiny tears. I touched the fabric softly, remembering how Emma's eyes had sparkled when she first saw it. "It's perfect, Mom. You're the best mother in the whole world." That was only 6 months ago. What had changed between then and now? I sat on my bed and pulled out the photo album I'd been making for her. Pictures of her first steps, first day of school, graduation, all the moments that made up our life together. On the last page, I'd left space for her wedding photo. The page would stay empty now, just like the chair I was supposed to sit in. I thought about her new friends, the ones she'd met at that expensive therapy group downtown. They had fancy words for everything and made her believe that loving your family was somehow toxic. They taught her that setting boundaries meant cutting out anyone who remembered who she used to be. And apparently I remembered too much. The next morning I did something I never thought I'd do. I got dressed in my best clothes and drove to the bridal shop where Emma's dress was being altered. The little bells on the door chimed when I walked in, the same bells that had played when Emma and I first came in together, laughing and dreaming about her special day. The shop owner, Mrs. Chen, smiled when she saw me. "Oh, hello. Here to check on Emma's dress. It's almost ready for pickup." I took a deep breath and said the words that felt like swallowing glass. "I'm here to return it." Mrs. Chen's smile faded. "Return it? But the wedding is next week." "There's been a change of plans," I said quietly. "Emma won't be needing the dress anymore." Mrs. Chen looked confused, but she was too polite to ask questions. She disappeared into the back room and returned with the dress in its protective bag. My heart broke a little more seeing it all wrapped up, ready for a day that would happen without me. "Are you sure about this?" she asked gently. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure about anything anymore. She processed the return, and I watched $3,000 appear back in my account. Money that represented months of sore feet and tired hands. Money that was supposed to buy happiness, but only bought heartbreak instead. As I walked out, Mrs. Chen called after me. "I hope everything works out okay." I didn't turn around because I didn't want her to see me cry. That night Emma called again, but this time her voice was different. Panicked, desperate. "Mom, there's been some kind of mistake. The bridal shop says you returned my dress. That can't be right." I was sitting in my kitchen, stirring a cup of tea that had gone cold an hour ago. "It's not a mistake, Emma. You said you didn't want me at your wedding, so I figured you didn't need the dress I bought either." The silence on the other end was so long, I thought she'd hung up. Then she exploded. "You can't do that. That dress was mine. You gave it to me." "I never gave it to you, honey. I was paying for it, but you made it clear I'm not part of your new life." "But Mom, the wedding is in 5 days. Where am I supposed to find another dress?" Her voice was high and shaky now, not cold like before. "I don't know, Emma. Maybe your real family can help you figure it out." I could hear her crying on the other end, and it took everything in me not to cave. Not to drive straight to every bridal shop in Texas and buy her whatever she wanted. But sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices. "Please, Mom. I'm sorry. I didn't mean what I said. I was just stressed and my therapist said I needed to create boundaries and I'm a boundary now." I asked softly. "Your mother who raised you alone is something you need protection from?" She was crying harder now, the ugly kind of crying that comes from real panic. "I messed up, okay? I admit it. But you can't punish me like this. Not on my wedding day." "I'm not punishing you, Emma. I'm just respecting your wishes. You wanted space from toxic people, and apparently that includes me." I could hear voices in the background, probably her new friends trying to figure out how to fix this mess. "What if I invite you back? What if I say I'm sorry?" "Some things can't be unsaid, honey. Some hurt cuts too deep to heal with a quick apology." The line went quiet again. Then she whispered, "So that's it. You're going to let me get married in rags because I hurt your feelings. You won't be in rags, Emma. You'll be in whatever you can find in 5 days. Just like I had to find a way to be okay when you erased me from the most important day of your life." After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. Part of me wanted to call her back to fix everything, to be the mother I'd always been. The one who made problems disappear with love and money. But another part of me knew that some lessons can only be learned the hard way. She'd spent months telling me I was holding her back, that I was part of her old life she needed to heal from. Well, now she could see what life looked like without me in it. The next few days were torture. My phone rang constantly. Emma, her friends, even her future mother-in-law called to beg me to change my mind. "Please, Mrs. Johnson," Emma's fiancé said during one call. "She's learned her lesson. She knows she was wrong." "Has she?" I asked. "Or is she just scared because her actions have consequences?" He didn't have an answer for that. I spent those days doing something I hadn't done in years. I thought about myself, about what I wanted, about who I was when I wasn't busy being Emma's mother, Emma's ATM, Emma's solution to every problem. I realized I'd lost myself somewhere along the way. I'd become so focused on being the perfect mother that I forgot I was also a person. A person who deserved respect, kindness, and love from the daughter I'd sacrificed everything for. On the morning of the wedding, I woke up early and made myself breakfast. Real breakfast, not the quick coffee and toast I usually grabbed. I sat on my porch and watched the sun come up, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It was beautiful, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. My phone was quiet. No desperate calls, no last-minute begging. Emma had made her choice, and now she was living with it. Around noon, my neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez came over with a cup of coffee and a sad smile. "I saw the news," she said gently. "Emma's wedding photos are already online." My heart stopped. Photos. She handed me her phone and there it was. Emma in a simple white sheet, safety pinned at the shoulders, walking down the aisle alone. Her face was puffy from crying, her makeup smeared. The man she was marrying looked embarrassed. His family confused. The comments below the photos were brutal. What happened to her dress? Why does she look so sad? This looks like a disaster. I stared at the photo for a long time. My daughter, the little girl who used to play dress-up in my high heels, walking down the aisle looking like she'd given up on her own dreams. Part of me felt terrible. Part of me wanted to drive over there and fix everything. But a bigger part of me felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Because for the first time in 25 years, Emma had to face the consequences of her choices without me swooping in to save her. She'd called me toxic, erased me from her special day, and told me I didn't belong in her new life. Well, this was what her new life looked like without her supposedly toxic mother. Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. "Sometimes our children need to learn that love isn't something they can take for granted." I nodded, but I still felt hollow inside. This wasn't how I'd imagined Emma's wedding day. In my dreams, I was there in the front row, crying happy tears as my baby girl married the man she loved. Instead, I was home alone, looking at pictures of her walking down the aisle in a bedsheet because she'd pushed away the one person who would have moved mountains to make her day perfect. That evening, as the sun was setting, my phone rang one more time. Emma's name appeared on the screen, and my heart jumped into my throat. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello, Emma." Her voice was small, broken, nothing like the confident woman who'd called me toxic 3 weeks ago. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I can't take back what I said, and I know you'll probably never forgive me, but I need you to know that I was wrong. About everything. I didn't say anything. Just listened. My wedding was a disaster. I looked ridiculous. Everyone was staring and whispering, and all I could think about was how much I wanted my mom there." She was crying again, but it sounded different this time. Not manipulative or desperate, just broken. I let those people fill my head with garbage about boundaries and toxic family, and I threw away the best mother in the world. I threw away the woman who worked herself to the bone to give me everything I wanted. Her voice cracked. I threw away my best friend. I felt tears running down my own cheeks, but I still didn't speak. Some apologies need space to breathe before you respond to them. "I know you probably hate me now," she continued. "And I wouldn't blame you if you never wanted to see me again. But I need you to know that you're not toxic, Mom. You're not holding me back. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was too stupid and selfish to see it." The line went quiet except for the sound of both of us crying. Finally I found my voice. "Emma, honey, I could never hate you. You're my daughter, and I'll love you until the day I die. But love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. Love doesn't mean being someone's doormat just because you share DNA." "I know," she whispered. "I know, and I'm so ashamed. I don't even know how to begin making this right." "You begin by understanding that actions have consequences," I said gently. You can't unsay hurtful words. You can't undo the choice to exclude your mother from your wedding. But you can choose to do better going forward. We talked for 2 hours that night. Really talked. Not the surface conversations we'd been having for months. She told me about the pressure she'd felt from her new friends, how they'd convinced her that keeping family at arm's length was healthy. She told me about the therapist who'd made her believe that everyone who remembered her childhood was somehow holding her back. They made me think that love was supposed to be conditional, she said. That I should only keep people in my life who made me feel good all the time. Real love isn't always comfortable, Emma, I told her. Sometimes the people who love you most will tell you things you don't want to hear. That's not toxic, honey. That's caring. She asked if she could come over and I said yes. When she arrived an hour later, she was still wearing that ridiculous white sheet, safety pins and all. She looked like a little girl playing dress-up, not a grown woman who'd just gotten married. The first thing she did was hug me, holding on so tight I could barely breathe. "I'm sorry, Mama," she whispered into my shoulder. "I'm so sorry." We sat on the couch and I held her while she cried. Really cried, not the angry, frustrated tears from before, but the deep, soul-healing kind of tears that wash away shame and pride and stubborn foolishness. "I saw the pictures," I admitted, "of your wedding." She pulled back and looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "It was awful, Mom. Felt like such a fool." Everyone was staring, and I knew they were all thinking the same thing. What happened to this girl's dress? What happened to her mother? She laughed, but it was a sad, bitter sound. "Marcus's mom kept asking where you were, and I didn't know what to tell her. How do you explain that you uninvited your own mother because you thought she was toxic? You tell the truth," I said simply. "You own your mistakes and you learn from them." Emma nodded, tears still streaming down her face. "I threw away the most important relationship in my life because some strangers convinced me it was unhealthy. How stupid is that?" "Not stupid, honey. Just confused. Sometimes when we're trying to grow, we think we have to throw away everything from our past. But the best parts of who you are came from the love you received as a child. That's not something to heal from, Emma. That's something to build on." She leaned against me like she used to when she was little and had bad dreams. "Can we start over, Mom? Can we try again?" I stroked her hair, the same way I had when she was small. "We can't start over, baby girl. Too much has happened for that. But we can start fresh. We can build something new that's stronger than what we had before." She looked up at me with hope in her eyes. "Really? You'd be willing to do that? After everything I put you through? Emma, you're my daughter. My only child. I didn't raise you for 25 years just to give up on you when you made a mistake." "Even a mistake this big?" she asked. "Even a mistake this big," I confirmed. "But things have to be different now. No more choosing strangers over family. No more calling the woman who raised you toxic when she doesn't agree with every choice you make." She nodded eagerly. "Yes, absolutely. I fired that therapist and I'm done with those friends. They were never really my friends anyway. Real friends don't try to turn you against your family." We spent the rest of the night talking about boundaries that actually made sense. About how you can set limits with people you love without cutting them out completely. About how respect works both ways, even between mothers and daughters. "I want to do something to make this right," Emma said as the night was ending. "The wedding, I mean. I want to have a real ceremony where you're in the front row where you belong." I smiled and cupped her face in my hands. "Honey, you're already married. That ship has sailed." "But it was so awful, Mom. I want to do it right this time." "The ceremony doesn't matter, Emma. What matters is that you learned something important today. You learned that people who truly love you don't ask you to choose between them and your family. You learned that respect isn't optional, even with the people closest to you. And you learned that actions have consequences, even when we don't like them." She hugged me again and this time it felt different. Not desperate or guilty but grateful. "I love you, Mom. And I promise I'll never take you for granted again." As she was getting ready to leave, still in that ridiculous sheet, she paused at the door. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, honey." "When you returned that dress, were you trying to teach me a lesson? Or were you just hurt?" I thought about it for a moment. Both, I think. I was hurt, yes. But I also knew that if I bailed you out one more time, you'd never learn that your words and actions matter. Sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is step back and let their child face the consequences of their choices. She nodded slowly. It was the hardest lesson I've ever learned. But probably the most important one too. After she left, I sat in my quiet house and thought about everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, my daughter had erased me from the most important day of her life. Tonight, she'd apologized with tears in her eyes and love in her heart. The road between those two moments had been painful, but necessary. Sometimes love has to be tough to be real. Sometimes you have to let people fall so they can learn to pick themselves up. I looked at the photo album I'd been making for Emma, still open to that blank page where her wedding picture was supposed to go. Maybe I'd never fill that page with the fairy tale wedding I'd dreamed of. But I could fill it with something better. The picture of a daughter who'd learned to value her mother, and a mother who'd learned that love sometimes means saying no. The next morning, Emma called me early. "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." My heart skipped a beat. After everything we'd been through, I wasn't sure I was ready for another difficult conversation. "What is it, honey? Do you forgive me? Really, truly forgive me? Not just saying it to make me feel better, but actually forgive me in your heart." I looked out my kitchen window at the morning sun painting everything gold. "Emma, forgiveness isn't just something you give once and it's done forever. Something you choose every day. Yesterday I chose to forgive you. Today I'm choosing it again. Tomorrow, if you show me through your actions that you've really changed, I'll choose it again." She was quiet for a moment. "That's fair," she finally said. "I don't deserve instant forgiveness after what I did. I need to earn it." "Not earn it, honey. Nurture it. Forgiveness is a gift, but trust is something that grows over time." "I understand," she said. "And Mom, thank you." "For what?" "For loving me enough to let me fall. For being strong enough to step back when I needed to learn. For teaching me that love isn't about making everything easy. It's about helping people become their best selves." I felt tears pricking at my eyes again. "You're welcome, baby girl." That conversation was 6 months ago. Today, Emma and I talk every few days. Real conversations, not just surface pleasantries. She asks my advice again, values my opinion, includes me in her life. Her marriage is stronger too because she learned that cutting out the people who love you doesn't solve your problems. It just makes you lonelier. She's found a new therapist, one who believes in healing relationships, not destroying them. And she's learned to set boundaries that protect her peace without sacrificing her connections. Last week she brought me a present. Not because it was my birthday or a holiday, but just because she wanted to show me she was thinking of me. It was a small photo album with pictures from her real wedding day. Not the fairy tale ceremony I'd originally imagined, but photos of us talking on my couch that night. Pictures Marcus had secretly taken of Emma hugging me, both of us crying and laughing at the same time. "These are the most important pictures from my wedding day," she told me. "Because this is when I really became a wife. Not when I said, 'I do' in front of a crowd, but when I learned what love really means." The last picture in the album was one I didn't even know existed. Emma had taken it while I was looking out the window that morning after we reconciled. I was holding a cup of coffee, and the early sunlight was making everything glow. I looked peaceful, content, strong. Below the picture she'd written, "My mom, my hero, my teacher. The woman who loved me enough to let me fall and strong enough to help me get back up." I cried when I read those words. Not sad tears but happy ones. Because I realized that all those years of sacrifice, all that love I'd poured into raising my daughter, hadn't been wasted after all. Sometimes the best lessons come wrapped in the hardest packages. Sometimes love looks like stepping back instead of stepping in. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to someone you love is, no. Emma learned that respect isn't optional, even with family. She learned that people who truly care about you won't ask you to choose between them and your loved ones. And she learned that some mistakes are too important to fix for someone else. They have to experience the consequences themselves. But I learned something too. I learned that being a good mother doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It doesn't mean sacrificing your dignity to keep the peace. And it doesn't mean accepting disrespect just because it comes from someone you love. I learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them face the results of their choices. Even when it breaks your heart to watch them struggle. Even when every instinct in your body is screaming at you to fix everything and make it all better. Emma's wedding day didn't look anything like what I'd dreamed of for 25 years. Instead of tears of joy, there were tears of embarrassment. Instead of a beautiful gown, there was a bedsheet held together with safety pins. Instead of her mother beaming in the front row, there was an empty seat and a daughter learning that actions have consequences. But maybe that was exactly what needed to happen. Maybe sometimes the most beautiful moments aren't the picture-perfect ones. Maybe they're the messy, painful, real ones where people stop pretending and start being honest. Today, Emma is planning a small vow renewal ceremony for their first anniversary. Not because their original wedding wasn't legal, but because she wants to do it right this time. She wants me in the front row. She wants to wear a dress that was chosen with love, not desperation. She wants to look back on her wedding pictures and see joy instead of regret. But most importantly, she wants to celebrate not just her marriage, but the relationship with her mother that almost died and was reborn stronger than ever. The dress she's chosen is simple and elegant, nothing like the elaborate gown from before. I don't need to impress anyone this time, she told me. I just want to marry my husband with my mom watching and my heart full of gratitude for the people who really matter. We went shopping for it together and this time it felt different. Not like a mother funding her daughter's dreams, but like two women who respect and value each other sharing a special moment. When we found the perfect dress, Emma insisted on paying for it herself. "This one is on me, Mom," she said firmly. "You taught me that love isn't about who pays for what. It's about who shows up and who stays." I watched her hand over her credit card, and I felt prouder of her in that moment than I had in years. Not because she was paying for her own dress, but because she'd grown into a woman who understood the difference between love and enabling. As we were leaving the bridal shop, Emma stopped and looked at me seriously. "Mom, I need to tell you something." My heart jumped a little. After everything we'd been through, I still worried sometimes that she might backslide, that those toxic friends might try to worm their way back into her life. "What is it, honey?" "I've been thinking about that night you returned my dress. About how angry I was, how I called you selfish and cruel." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I understand now that you weren't being mean. You were being a mother. The kind of mother who loves her child enough to let them learn hard lessons. Sometimes that's what love looks like, Emma. Not always comfortable, but always real." She nodded. "I want to be that kind of mother someday. The kind who teaches her children that respect isn't optional, that family isn't disposable, and that love sometimes means having difficult conversations." "You will be," I told her, and I meant it. Because you've learned that love isn't just about giving people what they want. It's about helping them become who they're meant to be. We drove home in comfortable silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. As we pulled into my driveway, Emma turned to me with tears in her eyes. "Mom, can I ask you something that might sound weird?" "Sure, honey. Do you think Dad would be proud of how we worked through this? Do you think he'd be happy that we found our way back to each other?" I thought about Emma's father, about the kind of man he'd been, about how much he'd loved his little girl. "Oh, sweetheart, he'd be so proud of both of us. Proud of you for having the courage to apologize and change. And proud of me for loving you enough to let you fall and learn." That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked, not just glancing while I brushed my teeth. I saw a woman who'd been tested and found her strength. A mother who'd almost lost her daughter but found herself instead. 4 years I'd defined myself by how well I could fix Emma's problems, how quickly I could make her happy, how much I could sacrifice to smooth her path. But I'd learned something valuable in those dark weeks after she uninvited me from her wedding. I'd learned that I was more than just Emma's mother. I was a complete person with my own worth, my own dignity, my own right to be treated with respect. I didn't have to earn love by being endlessly giving. I didn't have to accept cruelty just because it came from someone I'd raised. And I didn't have to fix every mistake my daughter made, especially when those mistakes needed to be learning experiences. Looking back now, I can see that returning Emma's wedding dress was one of the hardest but most important things I ever did as her mother. It wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about love. Real love. The kind that says, I care about you too much to let you treat me this way. I respect you too much to rescue you from the consequences of your choices. It was about teaching her that relationships require mutual respect, that love flows both ways, and that being family doesn't give anyone the right to be cruel. Emma's bedsheet wedding became a family legend, but not in the way you might think. Not as a story of a mother's revenge or a daughter's humiliation, but as the day our family learned what love really looks like. Messy, sometimes painful, but always honest. The day we learned that the strongest families aren't the ones that never have problems, but the ones that work through their problems with respect and genuine care for each other. 6 months later, when Emma walked down the aisle in her simple, elegant dress with me beaming in the front row, it felt like a completely different kind of ceremony. Not just a celebration of her marriage, but a celebration of a relationship that had been broken and rebuilt stronger than ever. When the pastor asked who was giving this bride away, Emma looked right at me and said, "My mother, who taught me that love isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth fighting for." There wasn't a dry eye in the house, including mine. But these were happy tears, tears of gratitude for a lesson learned and a relationship saved. As I watched Emma and Marcus exchange vows, I thought about all the mothers out there who are struggling with adult children who take them for granted, who are being treated like walking ATMs instead of human beings deserving of respect, who are wondering if they should keep enabling bad behavior or take a stand for their own dignity. To those mothers, I want to say this. Love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. Being a good parent doesn't mean saying yes to everything. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let your child face the consequences of their choices. It's scary, it's painful, but it's necessary. Emma's story taught me that enabling isn't love, it's fear. Fear that if we don't fix everything, if we don't smooth every path, if we don't say yes to every request, our children won't love us anymore. But real love isn't built on transactions. It's built on mutual respect, honest communication, and healthy boundaries. The kind of boundaries that say, I love you enough to let you learn, even when it hurts both of us. Now, when other mothers tell me about their struggles with ungrateful adult children, I share Emma's story. Not to shame anyone, but to show them that relationships can be healed when both people are willing to do the work. When both people are willing to admit their mistakes and make real changes. Emma had to learn that respect isn't optional, even with family. And I had to learn that being a good mother sometimes means being uncomfortable, setting boundaries, and letting natural consequences do the teaching. The most beautiful part of this whole experience is watching Emma become the kind of person I always knew she could be. Not the entitled, selfish young woman who uninvited her mother from her wedding, but the thoughtful, grateful daughter who understands that love is a two-way street. She's become someone who values family, who treats relationships with care, and who understands that actions have consequences. Last month, she called me on a random Tuesday just to tell me she loved me. Not because she needed money or wanted me to solve a problem, but because she genuinely wanted to share her gratitude. I was just thinking about how different my life could have been if you hadn't loved me enough to let me learn that hard lesson, she said. I could have spent years treating people badly and wondering why my relationships kept failing. Instead, I learned early that love requires respect, that family bonds need to be nurtured, and that the people who care about us deserve better than our worst behavior. Those words meant more to me than any expensive gift or grand gesture ever could, because they showed me that the pain of that difficult time had been worth it. The sleepless nights, the worry, the heartbreak of watching my daughter struggle, all of it had led to growth and healing that wouldn't have been possible any other way. Today, Emma and I have the kind of relationship I always dreamed we'd have when she was grown. built on mutual respect, honest communication, and genuine appreciation for each other. She asks for my advice because she values my wisdom, not because she needs me to fix her problems. She includes me in her life because she wants me there, not because she feels obligated. And she treats me with the kind of love and respect that makes all those years of sacrifice feel worthwhile. But most importantly, she's learned to extend that same respect and appreciation to others in her life. Her marriage is stronger because she understands that love isn't about taking whatever you can get. Her friendships are healthier because she's learned to choose people who build her up instead of tearing down her family relationships. And someday, when she becomes a mother herself, she'll have the tools to raise children who understand that love and respect go hand in hand. The bedsheet wedding will always be a part of our family story. But it's not a story of shame or regret. It's a story of transformation, of lessons learned, of a relationship that was broken and rebuilt stronger than ever. It's proof that sometimes the most difficult moments in our lives are also the most important ones. The moments that teach us who we really are and what we're really made of. If you're a mother struggling with an adult child who doesn't appreciate you, who takes you for granted, who treats you like a bank account instead of a human being, please know that you're not alone. And please know that you have more power than you think. You have the power to set boundaries, to demand respect, to step back when necessary. You have the power to teach valuable lessons, even when those lessons are painful. Most importantly, you have the power to love someone enough to let them face the consequences of their choices. 'Cause that's what real love looks like. Not enabling, not fixing, not rescuing, but supporting growth even when it's uncomfortable. Emma's bedsheet wedding taught both of us that love isn't about making everything easy. It's about helping each other become better people, even when the process is messy and painful. So to every mother who's ever been taken for granted, who's ever been treated like their love doesn't matter, who's ever wondered if they should keep giving or start setting boundaries, I want you to know that your love matters. Your respect matters. Your dignity matters. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is teach someone that those things aren't negotiable, even with family. Especially with family. Emma's wedding day didn't go according to plan, but it went according to purpose. The purpose of teaching us both what love really means. Not the shallow, transactional kind of love that says, "I'll love you as long as you make me happy," but the deep, transformational kind of love that says, "I love you enough to help you become your best self, even when it's hard for both of us." And in the end, that's the kind of love that lasts. That's the kind of love that builds strong families, healthy relationships, and people who understand their worth. Emma learned that she couldn't treat her mother like a disposable resource and expect to keep the benefits of that relationship. I learned that being a good mother sometimes means being willing to be the bad guy, in the short term for the sake of long-term growth and healing. Together, we learned that the strongest families aren't the ones that never have conflict, but the ones that work through their conflicts with honesty, respect, and genuine commitment to each other's well-being. We learned that love isn't about keeping the peace at any cost, but about creating the kind of peace that comes from mutual respect and understanding. Today, when I look at the pictures from Emma's real wedding, the vow renewal ceremony where I sat in the front row with tears of joy streaming down my face, I don't see a fairy tale ending. I see something better. I see a story of redemption, of growth, of a love that was tested and emerged stronger than ever. I see a mother and daughter who learned that the most precious relationships in life are worth fighting for, even when the fight is with each other. The wedding dress I returned that day was beautiful, but it represented something ugly. The idea that love could be demanded without respect being given in return. The simple dress Emma wore to her vow renewal was even more beautiful because it represented something pure. The idea that love shared between people who truly value each other is the most precious thing in the world. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever been in a situation where you had to choose between enabling someone you love or teaching them a difficult lesson, then you understand the weight of these decisions. You understand that sometimes love looks like saying no, like stepping back, like letting natural consequences do their work. And you understand that those moments, painful as they are, can lead to the most beautiful transformations. Emma's bedsheet wedding became the catalyst for the strongest, most honest relationship we've ever had. It forced us both to examine our behavior, our expectations, and our understanding of what love really means. It taught us that respect isn't optional, that boundaries aren't walls but bridges to healthier relationships, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in someone else's poor choices. So here's to all the mothers who've had to make hard choices in the name of love. Here's to the women who've been strong enough to set boundaries, brave enough to let their children learn difficult lessons, and wise enough to know that enabling isn't the same as loving. You're not cruel. You're not selfish. You are not heartless. You are mothers who understand that real love sometimes requires real courage. And here's to all the children who've learned, sometimes the hard way, that love is a two-way street. That respect isn't optional. That family relationships require nurturing, appreciation, and genuine care from both sides. You are the ones who will build stronger families, healthier relationships, and a better understanding of what it means to truly love someone. Emma's story reminds us that it's never too late to change, to grow, to learn what love really means. Her bedsheet wedding was the end of one chapter, the chapter where she took her mother for granted. But it was also the beginning of a better chapter, the one where she learned to value the people who truly matter. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in the power of tough love and second chances, if you understand that sometimes the most beautiful relationships are the ones that survive the hardest tests, then you belong here at Granny Twisted Tales, where every story teaches us that love isn't always pretty, but it's always worth fighting for.